let's get into some climate change news. This is from the Daily Star. This is from today. Huge 160-foot crater formed by underground gas explosion and phenomenon, quote unquote, new to science. All right. Is it that new? Because I feel like this has been happening over the last couple of years. So how new is it? New, I guess in geologic measurements and geological time, it's fairly new, but in the recent past or in recent events, it's not new. Professor Vasily Bogoyevlensky said that the huge hole, which is one of several that have appeared in Siberia over recent years, okay, so yeah, has scientific implications which he is not yet ready to disclose. Bizarre, perfectly cylindrical hole has appeared in northern Siberia, some 160 feet deep. The remarkable phenomenon was spotted by chance in late July when a TV crew flew over it on their way back from reporting on an unrelated story. They're like, what the hell is that? What is that? Hold on, turn this thing around. Blocks of soil and ice were thrown hundreds of yards when the crater formed. Scientists believe the mysterious holes, which have begun appearing all over Siberia, are a symptom of climate change. As the permafrost thaws, pockets of methane gas, which have been trapped underground for tens of thousands of years, are suddenly released. This, the 17th such crater, is the biggest yet. Dr. Evgeny Chuvulin, sorry, let me get that at least partially right, a leading researcher at the Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology, told the Siberian Times, what we saw today is striking in its size and grandeur. These are the colossal forces of nature that create such objects. Professor Vasily Bogoyevlensky of the Russian Oil and Gas Research Institute in Moscow told Vesti Yamal TV News, this object is unique. It carries a lot of additional scientific information, which I am not yet ready to disclose. Not ready to disclose. Oh no. This is a subject for scientific publications, he continued, not for mere news consumers. We have to analyze all this and build three-dimensional models. We've got to study it from all sides. Even though we know exactly what's going on. He added that he thought drilling for oil and gas in the region could be contributing to the unprecedented eruptions. In addition, he pointed out the danger if one of these hydrolacoliths, I think that's it, hydrolacoliths, as scientists call them, erupted beneath a major gas pipeline. He warns that there are a number of bulges in the earth, pingos, that could one day burst, as this one has, if that happened near a major oil and gas facility. There's a potential for a major ecological disaster. There already has been a major ecological disaster in Siberia due to climate change just this summer. As we all know, there was a huge gas spill because of melting permafrost. In a number of areas, pingos, as we see them both from satellite, as we see both from satellite data and with our own eyes during helicopter inspections, literally prop up gas pipes, he said. Using a combination of satellite images and field studies, researchers have made account of the pingos. At first, such a bump is a bubble or a bogonyak in the local Yakut language, or bogunyak. Alexei Titovsky, director of the Yamal Department for Science and Innovation, explained, with time, the bubble explodes, releasing gas. He continued, this is how gigantic funnels form. He says his team are working on a way of determining which of the bulges is most in danger of bursting. Scientists are working on detecting and structuring signs of potential threat, he said, like the maximum height of a bump or pressure that the Earth can withstand. It's thought that there could be between 7,000 and 10,000 pingos, not all containing methane. Well, how did they get there? like the maximum height of a bump and pressure that the Earth can withstand. Oh, wait, hold on. I missed something. Scientists are working on detecting and structuring signs of potential threat. He said like the maximum height of a bump and pressure that the Earth can withstand. It's thought that there could be between 7,000 and 10,000 pingos, not all containing methane. I think I'm reading the same sentences over again. Sorry. Vladimir E. Romanovsky, a geophysicist at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, told the Washington Post, this really is really a new thing to permafrost science. It has not been reported in the literature before. Can you say, uh-oh. Places to hide your UFOs, says Duncan McCown. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's where they're hiding them. Kami Pingo, yes. Yes, Rich Gianna, they have been happening in Siberia for the last few years. Huh. Schulte 100 said, "Hi everyone. Effing people, I just finished watching Progressive WA and told folks if they give an F about global warming, check out Black Bear. And some chick followed my comment, everyone here go to Ron Placone." Okay. I mean, you know, whatever. I like Ron Placone. Again, they're not really following climate change every day. And climate change, you know, it's all a Green New Deal. It's all a Green New Deal, a vista of Green New Deals. Guy mentioned the topic today in his daily update. Okay. Yes, we have 126 watching, 32 likes. Please like up the video. If you're new, please subscribe. Let's move on. This is very sad news for bears, for my fellow bears, all the bears, human bears and bears. This is from Howard Breen. Increase in human-caused bear deaths raises concerns for forest health. Let's look at this a little bit. Bear deaths have been rising steadily since the mid-1990s, particularly in the northwest region of Colorado. This is from yesterday. Each summer, news reports in Aspen and across Colorado's high country detail conflicts between black bears and people, bears in trash cans, homes, campsites, and more. As these conflicts continue to increase, more bears are killed, and local experts say that raises red flags for forest health. Adam McCurdy, Forest and Climate Director at the Aspen Center for Environmental Studies, or ACES, oversees the nonprofit's Forest Health Index, which tracks drivers of forest health, including bear mortality for all watersheds in Colorado. Bear deaths have been rising steadily since the mid-1990s, particularly in the northwest region as defined by Colorado Parks and Wildlife. That region stretches from the Roaring Fork and Eagle River valleys to the Utah and Wyoming borders. If we're seeing more human-bear conflicts, there are multiple drivers that all say bad things for forest health. Increasing trend is clear, so this is the trend of bear deaths in northwest Colorado since 1908. There were a lot here. What is this, 2014? The number of bear deaths varies from year to year, but the increasing trend is clear. The Forest Health Index uses bear mortality data. Excluding bears killed by hunters from CPW, the numbers include all bears killed or found dead, including roadkill and bears killed by state or federal wildlife officials and landowners. Outside of hunting, bear deaths in northwest Colorado in the 1980s numbered in the single digits. No bear death was recorded by CPW in 1988. Over the past decade, bear deaths or bear kills in northwest Colorado that were not part of the hunting harvest range from a low of 77 in 2010 to a high of 329 in 2014. That is 329. That is an incredible number of bears. In 2019, there were 179 bear deaths in the region because they were all killed. They all died. While ACES does not include hunting data in its analysis of bear mortality, those numbers are all also increasing. CPW data shows hunters killed 1,367 bears in Colorado last year. Holy shnikes, that's a lot of bears. Why? Compared to 506 bears in 1995. That is almost triple the number. Regional data is not available because some hunting units cross region boundaries. The forest as a functioning ecosystem is a really complex concept, said Elise Osenga, Community Science Manager with the Aspen Global Change Institute, which partners with ACES on the Forest Health Index. Bear mortality is indicative of natural causes, but also human causes. Bear deaths, they're in a cycle. Nature goes in cycles. It's just like climate change, Let me see. Bear deaths reflect natural and human food availability. Much of the year-to-year variability in bear mortality can be attributed to the availability of natural food sources. When late spring frosts or drought kill off berries and acorns, there's an absolute increase in bear death. So there you go, late spring frosts or drought, which there has been much, the entire ecosystem is changing, the climate is changing, of course. It's getting much warmer, much less snow, and, just much more warmer average temps. When bears are pressed in terms of natural food sources, they turn to human-related food sources. Vieira said that leads to more conflicts with everything from hobby, livestock, and agriculture to conflicts with bears in neighborhoods and people's garages. When natural foods aren't abundant, bears are forced to move around more, searching for calories. This makes bears more vulnerable to hunters, and it also leads to an increase in roadkills and conflicts in developed areas. We expect, as the climate continues to warm, that we're going to have more and more food failure years, so we can expect mortality to go up too. Right. They do not control their agriculture like we do. So if there's a year, just 1 year of bad, a bad year for food growth or foraging or whatever, or if there's a couple bad years in a row, then down go the bears. But the increase in food failure, and that will eventually translate to humans, right? We expect as the climate continues to warm that we're going to have more and more food failure years, so we can expect mortalities to go up too. So Julie Mao, CPW biologist in the Aspen area. The increase in food failure and human conflict doesn't correlate to a decrease in bear population. Instead, Vieira said bear numbers across the state are growing alongside increases in human population. Wow, okay. Interesting. CPW estimates that there are between 17,000 and 20,000 bears in Colorado, up from about 12,000. So I guess you'd have to kill a lot of bears to kill all of them. In the 1990s, studies near Aspen and Carbondale from 2009-2011 show that bear density in the area is close to 1 bear per square mile. That's a lot of bears. Human food sources are a significant component in increasing bear densities. More human food, more bears. That sounds fairly logical. It's clear that human activities can impact forest health, but McCurdy said that tracking that impact can be challenging since population data, particularly in areas with high tourism, doesn't tell the whole story. There aren't great use numbers for trails. For example, McCurdy said census data doesn't tell the number of people impacting the landscape through recreation. But data on bear mortality helps to fill out the story. Bears are quick to react to the increased presence of humans, and we see that increase in conflict. Also in the mountains, areas ripe for development tend to also be prime bear habitat. Wow. That is truly tragic. We'd love to build a whole bunch of homes right here. Oh, are there bears there? Sorry. CPW Wildlife Manager Curtis Tesh points to many Aspen area homes that are built into hillsides rich with serviceberry and gamble oak, key natural food sources for bears. But too bad for the bears, right? We need to build these homes because rich people want them and need them. Even if bears are feeding naturally on the oak, it's still drawing them to those homes, and they smell somebody's barbecue grill or somebody's trash that they left out. Tesh said, it only takes one unsecured trash can or open window to teach a bear to rely on human food sources. Tesh said, so communities need 100% compliance with trash ordinances and other bear-aware practices, including locking doors and windows. It's human negligence that causes a bear to be a problem bear. Tesh said, CPW officials, it also is the presence of humans. Not just negligence, but just your mere presence, because bears, they get to be wherever they want to be, right? You know, bears live where bears live, and it's because we go into their habitat. It's not us that's the problem, it's the bears. They're the problem bears, right? Oh, humans, you're so smart. You're so the best. Barbecue said going south, yes. Smells like barbecue. So, bears like food, says Forest Dweller, yes. Rich Diana, all large predators are doomed, and then it's our turn. Hello, Poppy Davis. Let's, that is sad news, of course. That's going to go where it's going to go. Let's move on. Fires in New Zealand, or at least fairly large fires happening in New Zealand. 3 rural fire crews stand by as large fire erupts at Rock and Pillar Range in Middlemarch, Otago. Of course, it's winter in New Zealand, so wildfires in winter, no longer a weird or strange or out of the ordinary thing. People are reporting a massive fire on the hills above Middlemarch this evening. Fire Emergency NZ spokeswoman said 8:30 p.m. the fire was about 400 hectares in size and burning on the eastern face of the Rock and Pillar Range. The fire was too dangerous for crews to approach, so they would be monitoring it overnight before calling in helicopters and other resources in the morning. A Middlemarch resident reported the fire seemed to be doubling every minute. Another nearby resident said she believed it would be hard to put out due to severe wind in the area. The fire looked to be huge and spreading rapidly down the mountain. The latest blaze comes on a day where the South has been ravaged by fires. Wildfire season is all year round in some places. This is from Revolution Pie. Half of the total number of animals that once shared the planet with us are already gone. And the liars and science deniers continue with their bullshit as usual model. Yes, we have been covering this story. This is just yet another story. This is actually from 2019, so a year old, but frogs are dying off at record rates, an ominous sign that the 6th mass extinction is hitting one group of creatures hardest. Human activity has killed off 680 mammal, bird, reptile, amphibian, and fish species since the 1500s. As much as half of the total number of animal individuals that once shared the planet with us are already gone. That death toll is likely to rise dramatically over the next decades. A recent report from the United Nations found that between 500,000 and 1 million plant and animal species face imminent extinction. At least 10% of insect species and more than 33% of all marine mammals and reef-forming coral are threatened, it found. But one group is expected to suffer most of all: amphibians. An estimated 40% of amphibian species face extinction, according to the UN report. A study published in the journal Current Biology estimated that at least 2,000 amphibian species are in danger of extinction. In the past 50 years, so this group includes frogs, toads, salamanders, and newts. In the past 50 years, more than 500 amphibian species have experienced population declines worldwide. 90 of them have gone extinct due to a deadly fungal disease called chytridiomycosis. Or chytrid fungus, which corrodes frog flesh. Delicious. Okay, I'm going to move on from that. I think I probably read a similar story last year on just that, but that hasn't stopped or abated. It's continuing apace. They didn't suddenly have an about face in the last year. So tomorrow is September 1st, and there is a large action, at least in England, going on. I don't know how worldwide this is going to be, but Extinction Rebellion is planning a very large action tomorrow in the UK, and I expect that there will be other cities around the world taking part. This is from the 26th of August. So we already covered this story, but I wanted to cover it again because it's pretty alarming, right? So there's an action planned, there's protest planned, and they arrested 5 people, including Roger Hallam, ahead of this protest, just to send a message like, we see what you're going to do. We don't like what you're going to do. We're going to arrest you before you even do anything, because you're conspiring to do this thing. 5 activists, including Extinction Rebellion co-founder Roger Hallam, were arrested by the Met Police and charged yesterday ahead of planned demonstrations this weekend. That was August 25th. All 5 people arrested by the Met were charged with conspiracy to cause criminal damage before the start of a series of protests starting on Friday, August 28th. Well, I guess they already started. September 1st is supposed to be the large push, but who knows? Aimed at raising awareness of the climate crisis and escalating ecological catastrophe. Hallam of Putney Bridge Road in Wandsworth helped start Extinction Rebellion back in 2018, has been arrested various times and spent time in jail for climate-related activism. On Wednesday, August 26th, a spokesperson for the Met confirmed the charges of all 5 people, 4 of whom are thought to be affiliated with XR. And moving on to a related update, this is from Beyond Politics, which is another organization that Roger Hallam helped form. They're also affiliated, I believe, with an organization called Burning Pink. Anyways, there's an update. Blythe, Furhat, and Stephen were granted bail. These are of the 5 that were arrested. Blythe and Furhat are out of prison and safe. We very much hope that Stephen is released at the latest next Tuesday. We are still waiting for Diana's lawyers to tell us what's next. At the moment, she is in prison. Roger's appeal for bail was turned down. The bail conditions so harsh, the judge couldn't make a decision without Roger being present. He is on remand in Pentonville Prison until the next bail hearing on the 22nd of September. So he is going to remain in jail until at least September 22nd. The court hearing for all defendants is provisionally set for late February 2021. So there you go. Conspiracy to cause trouble, indeed. Going south. Yeah. What was that movie that Tom Cruise is in about pre-crime, arresting people for pre-crime? I don't know. I don't know if there's a precedent for this. Maybe this has happened in the past. Although I don't really remember anything like this happening before, right? We're planning an action. We're going to arrest you before the action even happens. Pretty wild. Conspiracy to fight for the people on the planet. Yes, Jacob Gordon. I guess that's a punishable act. Minority Report. Yeah, thank you. That was the movie. Set in the, in the future, quote unquote, with the future being now, maybe. Beyond Politics vandalized and painted pink the offices of the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, and Green Party. That's John D. Yeah. That's right. Going south. You're right. Roger was arrested before the action last summer too. They were. Was that when they were going to fly drones at Heathrow? I think that's what was happening. They were threatening to fly drones at Heathrow, and I think he was arrested before that happened. I'm not sure. Or no, I think he actually started to fly the drone, and then he was arrested. But I don't know. Maybe I'm getting them all mixed up. John Siggy Kelleher, he went to school for how to get arrested. Yeah, he actually did. Human Love Solidarity, the arrests in 2019-2020 were dismissed because preventing a bigger threat of extinction is larger than a road blockage. Well, let's, send some good thoughts to Roger Hallam. I don't know. They were threatening to do a hunger strike, so I don't know if he's actually on a hunger strike or not. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if that's still happening. This is fairly wild. This is, fairly wild, but maybe not unimaginable considering it's the U.S. FEMA chief won't say humans are causing climate change. I actually haven't watched this clip, so we're about to watch it together. Maybe.
You pointed out in a congressional hearing last month that hurricanes are becoming more and more frequent, more costly, more damaging because the climate is changing. Do you believe that human activity is responsible for the climate crisis?
FEMA's role is to deliver these valuable disaster resources for any hazard. So we're an all hazards agency. And, why it happened, I'm going to leave that up to the scientists. My job, my role is to make sure that those disaster survivors have everything they need to get their lives back to normal. And that's really our focus. And that's why we came down to Louisiana and Texas. That's why the president came down to see it firsthand and give them some hope that federal resources and that great partnership is intact.
So you mentioned the scientists. Scientists do overwhelmingly agree that there is human involvement in the climate crisis. The Trump administration produced its own report. 13 federal agencies was crystal clear that the observational evidence does not support any credible natural explanations for this amount of warming. Instead, the evidence consistently points to human activities, especially emissions of greenhouse or heat-trapping gases, as the dominant cause. You subscribe to that? You believe that's accurate?
Yeah, so again, I'm gonna leave all that to the scientists. I'm not a scientist. My role as the nation's emergency manager is to deliver those valuable resources to those impacted by disasters, no matter the cause, no matter the place.
Right.
And that's my mission.
Right, and I get that. I get that you're responsible for cleaning it up, quite literally. But as somebody who's in charge of that, do you not want to look at the cause as part of your job? And at least maybe subscribe to, as I said, what your own administration has said, at least the scientists that you're referring to.
Well, I mean, we have, across every state in the United States, we have mitigation plans, and in those mitigation plans, states have to, and these are our rules to states. They have to embrace things like changing conditions, demographic shifts, weather patterns, all those things to make sure that their plans reflect that. So it's part of what we do. But today in Louisiana, my job is to make sure I deliver those valuable federal resources to those impacted by disaster.
Let me ask you this way. Do you believe that the climate crisis is a threat to the U.S.?
And again, you can go back and look at the record. The climate has changed, and if you just look at hurricanes, they're more frequent, they're more deadly, they're more devastating. And again, my role as the leader of FEMA, as the emergency manager for the nation, is to make sure that the nation is prepared to mitigate those risks. Congress passed last year a great program, building resilient infrastructure in communities, where we want to invest in pre-disaster mitigation, invest in disasters before they happen. So that really is the best way to battle all kinds of weather challenges.
Okay, so just for our viewers, the overwhelming scientific consensus is that human activity is responsible for the climate crisis. I know you don't want to go there. Let's move on.
Well, hey, I'm gonna give that news anchor.
Hey everybody, it's Jake Tapper.
Oh,
BBN State of the Union.
Jake Tapper, I don't want to hear from you. Please be quiet.
Comment made by...
Thank you. Ed Ryan says, I don't blame him for not saying it. It's not his place. Okay. Well, I don't. Pedigree monkey, how can you say it's warming? People are still freezing to death. Who are you? Okay, just joking. Thank you. Right. You're just. It's hard to tell in the chat sometimes. Right. Exactly. I'm wondering why he won't say that. I mean, I feel like he's just taking the whole like safe route. I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want to say anything out of line. I don't want to, I got to toe the company line or whatever it is. So maybe he doesn't want to. But it's just, that's kind of weird because as the CNN anchor said, the consensus, the overwhelming consensus is that, climate change is real and it's human cause. And she's right. Of course she's right. So G. Demarest, I don't believe in climate change. It just is. Well, right. It just is because it's called evidence. Right. There's, you don't have to believe in climate change. Actually, don't believe in climate change. You just look at the evidence and then know that it is actually happening. So there's no debate because the evidence is so overwhelming, right? You have to deny overwhelming evidence and you have to believe. The only belief involved is believing climate change is not real. That's when belief comes in because you have to believe, some random ideas about what's happening on Earth. You have to believe something other than what scientists are actually telling you is happening. So the only belief that's going on is in science deniers' minds. Climate change is not about a belief. It's about looking at evidence and looking at the enormous body of evidence that we have that it's real. And we've had it for 100 years. So, there's no debate. Gene says he is not a strong man with principles. No. Right. Guyo Smith doesn't want to lose his cushy job. And that's, I'm sure why he said that. I got a super chat in here. Thank you, Raza, Eco Warrior. Happy birthday to you and happy birthday to me, too. Thanks for the super chat. It says, thanks for toasting me. In future, please use bread. Ba-dum-bum. Right. Even the Pentagon lists human-caused climate change as the major threat, not just lefties. Right. It's not something that wild-eyed radical lunatics believe in. It's, the Pentagon believes in it. Every military service understands it's a huge problem. Corporations do studies on it every year. Fossil fuel companies put out reports on it, have put out reports on it for decades. So, come on. Come on now. Anyways, let's move on. This is a tweet from Mark Herdling. I don't know who he is. Have no idea. He's a retired soldier who loves his family, studies leadership and healthcare. All right, and he's a Cards and a Blues fan, so I'm assuming Mark is from St. Louis. I'm a big fan of Bill Weir, CNN, especially his reporting on climate change. The military sees, here you go, the military, this is a retired soldier, the military sees the negative implication on planning. And I saw the repercussions in combat in the Middle East and refugees heading to Europe. We must get after this. So this is a veteran, military veteran, discussing the implications of climate change. So let's read this from Bill Weir from CNN. CNN. Sorry if you're not seeing this. I apologize. Hurricanes, fires, floods, and locust science says climate change is here, but the RNC refuses to believe. The words biblical proportion come to mind, but even the plagues of Egypt didn't come all at once. In 2020, we have giant swarms of locusts from East Africa to India, 500-year floods in Europe, fears of a dam collapse in China, and Typhoon Bavi hitting the Korean peninsula. In the U.S. alone, there is a record-smashing hurricane in the south, a 1 million-acre gigafire in the west, and over 40% of Iowa corn and soybeans flattened by 140 mile-per-hour winds. An inland, basically an inland hurricane. Complicating the mounting, which has happened twice in the last 3 years, right? We had like a bomb cyclone a few winters ago, which was basically an inland hurricane. Complicating the mounting task of saving lives and livelihoods in this ongoing climate crisis. A new disease released from a natural world out of balance. Two tiny foes, coronavirus and heat-trapping gas, joining forces to make pandemic patients in Lake Charles, Louisiana, worry about blown roofs and falling trees. They are forcing California firefighters to socially distance on 72-hour shifts after more than 10,000 dry lightning strikes started 500 fires. And this is a picture of grain bins in Iowa that were destroyed just last month. Threat multiplier is the adjective that the U.S. military first applied to climate change in 1990 when predictions of death, desperation, and tension were mostly for distant corners of a warming world. But now here at home, the threats seem to multiply by the hour as an example of the Sophie's choices that come from such confluence of unnatural disaster. President Trump hopes to divert $40 billion from FEMA's emergency response fund to a fresh round of unemployment relief for the tens of millions driven out of work by COVID-19. And California Governor Gavin Newsom furloughed nonviolent convicts in a desperate attempt to slow prison outbreaks. As a result, lost vital firefighting manpower. And that's ridiculous that we have to keep prisoners in jail so that they can fight fires. Firefighters carry a hose towards a burning structure. This is obviously a picture of the fires in Napa, California. For so long, in studying climate change, we're studying the future, says Catherine Hayhoe, Director of Climate Science Center at Texas Tech University, and now the future is here. So, if we live here in Texas, we're going to see stronger and bigger and slower hurricanes with a lot more rainfall. If we live in the West, we're seeing that natural wildfires are burning greater and greater area. If we live in the Midwest, warmer temperatures are supersizing our rainstorms. Juicing these changes, she says, are the very Gulf oil platforms, refineries, and petrochemical plants punished by Hurricane Laura and Harvey, Michael, Rita, Ike, Katrina et al. Almost Every other developed nation in the world understands the basic physics that the more they pump and burn, the more unpredictable life on Earth will become. By watching the Republican National Convention, if you didn't know, you'd never know. This is an aerial view of some damage from Hurricane Laura, which was just last week. Vice President Mike Pence offered warnings and good wishes for those in the path of Hurricane Laura on Wednesday night. And on Thursday, President Donald Trump started his speech mentioning the people who had come through the wrath of the storm. He said it was fierce, one of the strongest to make landfall in 150 years. Yeah, record storms every single year. So why is that happening? Then added that the casualties and damage were far less than thought possible just a day earlier. Night after night, speaker after speaker made no mention of the scientific consensus that burning fossil fuel is making your parents, hurricanes, floods, and wildfires much, much worse. While the Democrats drilled down and got specific on their promises, did they really? I think their promises were like, we're going to be lots, really like better people than Donald Trump. I think that was their basic platform. They did talk about climate change-ish somewhat. They admit that it's real and that they're going to try and do something about it. But there was way more intense climate change discussion in the People's Party convention yesterday. While the Democrats drilled down and got specific on their promises, should they get a chance to govern, most mentions of the environment by the Republicans came in celebration of regulation rollbacks and harsh rejections of Joe Biden's plan to spend $2 trillion on clean energy projects and re-enter the Paris Climate Accord. Yes, but no mention here about the Democrats sneaking out the plan to stop subsidizing fossil fuel companies, right? So they're not talking about that because this is CNN, and we have to keep up the mirage, if you will, that they're going to do something about it. The Democratic Party of Joe Biden is pushing this so-called Green New Deal, says Iowa Senator Joni Ernst in a pre-taped speech. She mocked efforts by Democrats to legislate the climate crisis after referencing the August 10 derecho that ripped apart 10 million acres of her state. If given power, they would essentially ban animal agriculture and eliminate gas-powered cars. They won't. First of all, they won't do that. But second of all, if they were going to do that, that would be that would be great. That would be awesome if they would do that. They are not going to do that. That's the problem. It would destroy agriculture industry, not just here in Iowa, but across the country. This is untrue. The 14-page Green New Deal resolution here you go. This is untrue. The 14-page Green New Deal resolution calls for working collaboratively with farmers and ranchers in the United States to remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture sector as much as is technologically feasible. But there is no call for a ban on cows or gasoline cars. Well, and there you go. How much does the 2018 campfire cost just to fight? Just to put out the flames? I asked Governor Newsom after ferocious winds made the campfire the most destructive wildfire in state history. It is jaw-dropping, the numbers, and they continue to escalate. Newsom replied, just the debris removal is in not billion, but multi-billion-dollar expense. The second and the third biggest fires in state history are now burning at the same time, and the windy season hasn't even begun. Folks think, well, we can't afford to address climate change, Newsom said. My gosh, the naivete of that, because the most expensive option is doing nothing. Here you go. Here's a big wind farm, guys. How did climate change become so politically polarized? Hey-ho asks. It's not the science, it's the solutions. Excuse me. We've been told that the only solutions to climate change are negative or punitive. They involve destroying the economy, throwing people out of work, and letting the United Nations rule the world. Well, the message here is, it could be more nuanced than she is exhibiting. Anyways, blurred by this message, she says Americans miss how much progress is happening between disasters. Yeah, but trying to equate progress on climate change with economic progress is not progress on climate change. It is not the same. They don't know that 70% of the new electricity being installed around the world is now clean energy. They're unaware that solar energy plus storage is actually cheaper than natural gas in California, or that Texas has more installed wind energy than any other state in the country, or that Texas has the first carbon neutral airport. What? Get out of town. Texas has the first carbon neutral airport in DFW and Fort Hood. The biggest army base in the U.S. is supplied entirely by wind and solar energy. I did not know that. Okay, so I feel like that is some disingenuous messaging right there, because there is no such thing as a carbon neutral airport, okay? So airplanes all burn major amounts of fossil fuel. So calling an airport carbon neutral is absolutely disingenuous on a very high level. So I'm going to call bullshit on this. And no way that an army base is, that's great if they're entirely supplied by wind and solar energy. They're saying that probably their administrations are supplied by wind and solar, which is good, but we all know that the Army burns more fossil fuels than many small nations. So this Army base is absolutely using lots and lots of fossil fuels. So to say that it's entirely supplied by wind and solar energy is absolutely false. This is disingenuous. You can't tell people this. This is a lie. So this really sucks when climate scientists lie to you. She's bullshitting you. I'm really upset by this. The reality is that solutions are already here. Anyways, just to put a nice patina on the whole Green New Deal type thing that's going on, but that's impossible. That an airport is carbon neutral. It's impossible that an army base is only supplied by renewable energy. Impossible. If Hey-Ho sees the solutions, others see pain along the way. It's going to get worse before we get better, says Lieutenant General Russell Honore. We have to find solutions to pollution that will drive the future economy. Known as the Ragin' Cajun, Honore took over following a disastrous state and federal response to Hurricane Katrina. The storm and its aftermath killed at least 1,833 people almost 15 years ago to the day. Right after Katrina, we had Rita, and right after that, you had Ike, if you all remember that. A reporter asked me, we just had two hurricanes. Do you think that has anything to do with global warming? And I was stunned. I gave her some smart answer, but it haunted me for days, he said. At the time, the Department of Defense was keen to the threat of sea level rise to bases around the country, but the question suddenly made the science personnel, as Honore saw his own beloved... made the science personal, as Honore said, saw his own beloved bayou communities drown after lack of official planning and imagination. 15 years later, Honore spends most hours thinking about fixes for the Gulf and the nation he served. We can start by fixing our infrastructure. Let's adjust the damage done, create jobs that reduce the impact on the air, the water, and the land. I think we've got to have adult conversations regardless of what political class. Oh yeah, I agree, but let's have conversations rooted in reality too. Like don't say something is carbon neutral when it is not. Please don't do that. Taking action is critical for people like Hey-Ho. There's no right answer in how to fix climate change, she says. There's no silver bullet either. How about truth, Catherine Hey-Ho? How about the truth? Stop. You cannot deal with this if you are lying. You cannot do that. But we are all responsible for our families, to our loved ones, to our children, to the poor, and the marginalized and the vulnerable right here, right where we live, as well as around the world, to take our heads out of the sand, to recognize that climate is changing. Humans are responsible. The impacts are serious, and we can act now, no matter who we are and how we vote. Okie dokie. Okay. Well, good to know that, there's an admission of the seriousness of the problem, but my God, the amount of obfuscation in that article was angering. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.